All right. Appreciate you guys all being here. So we got sales meeting for January 13th. It's nice to have a few of you, a few more people here in the auditorium. So welcome back. I can tell some of the independents are kind of, they've had their month-long sabbatical or hiatus and are back. Welcome back, Eric. Looks like you've been snowboarding or whatever you've been doing. I appreciate you coming back. So like we like to start, guys, kind of with Motivation Monday. I'm going to kind of combine the training portion of today's meeting with kind of the motivation, kind of conflate the two. And I always try to think what message will help you guys, right? There's always stuff that I want to talk about, but what do I think can help our collective sales floor the most right now? And even for you guys who are vets who have been in the business a long time, you've heard me talk about this before, but it's always nice to kind of revisit and have an idea of, where you're at, where you're going, and what you want to do. And so what I want to talk about this week is knowing your numbers, right? And I have this quote up here: what gets measured gets managed. And I think it's a really good reminder, because even for myself, it's very easy to kind of forget or just kind of let things go on autopilot, especially once you're having some success, and to not really get back to some of the metrics that you've been tracking that kind of got you to where you are. So know your numbers, and so we're going to talk about personal and professional KPIs. Everybody knows what a KPI is? Yes, no? Yes, key performance indicator, right? So if you don't know what you're doing, and the cool thing about sales is there's a pretty good overall average KPI, right? How many sales you're getting, how many enrollments you're processing. So for personal sales KPIs, what I want you to know is, on average, what initial efforts or activities do you need to make, leads generated, calls made, appointments scheduled, or events worked, in order to get the desired result. And so I've talked about this before, but I've been in sales basically my whole life. And I did door-to-door for 11 years for Comcast. Even before that, I served an LDS mission, and surprise, they're all about the numbers and the KPIs as well. So I was always reporting, contact rates, presentations, sales made, even including the missionary aspect of it. And when I was selling at Comcast door-to-door, I'd got my numbers down very exact. So I knew that on average, I would sell about 1 out of every 7 people that I talked to, right? And it was important to me because, and I figured that out by, calculating how many doors I knocked on average, how many people I'd actually had any sort of conversation with, and then how many sales I would get at the end of the night. And on average, it ended up being about 1 out of every 7, which was pretty good. And so the reason why it was important for me to track is I always knew that on average, if I kept going, the law of numbers would kind of play out. And sometimes I had a particularly bad area. Sometimes, maybe I was not great. I was not performing my best, and those numbers would be kind of skewed. But it helped me know that if I just kept going, if I kept making contacts, eventually I'd get a sale or two. And so the same thing applies for you guys. However we're prospecting, we, as insurance agents, it doesn't really matter how we do it. Sales is an essential piece of the business. And so whether you guys are, an independent agent and you're purchasing leads, contacting those, whether you're talking to people at like a local retail event, or whether you're talking to people on the phone, you need to know your numbers, okay? How many people do I need to talk to? Do I need to have any sort of conversation with before I'm getting an enrollment on average? How many contacts does it take me, before I'm getting into these conversations? And I can promise you that if you, track those things, it's going to make you a more productive, a better agent overall. Do any of you actually know, on average, how many people you need to talk to before you get an enrollment? Yes? You do? How many roughly?
Say about 10 to 20.
Okay. 10, that's pretty broad. I'm going to challenge you on that one. Like 10 to 20 is pretty wide. So dial that in. How about you, Sean? Been a minute?
Yeah, I don't know. I think back when I was selling, it was like 1 and 6, 1 and 7.
Okay, 1 and 6, 1 and 7. That's pretty good. And yeah?
Yeah, with my 100 calls, I do like about, like, talking to people, actual conversation.
Uh-huh.
Like 10 people, I'll actually sell one, so.
Yeah, and so that's a pretty average statistic, so that's good. So when you know your numbers, when you can track and you can improve, right? If you're having 30 conversations that feel semi-productive and you're not enrolling anybody, you have some work to do, right? But we don't know what we need to do to improve unless we're tracking and measuring these things. And these are all things that we track on the back end at a macro level, but you all should know, hey, that was a productive, if somebody, hangs up on you before you even get a word out, or, walks by you at a retail event and you don't even get an at-bat to talk to that person, that's not what I'm talking about. But if you get into any sort of conversation, how many of those are you closing, right? And I think what you'll find, what is your contact rate? What is your close rate from those people that you're talking to? And when you know your numbers, like I said, you can start improving. First of all, if you're contacting a lot of people and you're not getting into any productive conversations, you should probably change something, right? It's probably your tonality or your approach or your first little 5, 6, 7, 10 seconds. I've done everything from retail events, door to door, on the phone, and a lot of people will essentially judge whether you're worth talking to in those first few seconds, right? Your tonality on the phone, if you're calling somebody and you sound, boring, like you hate your life, like you hate your job, that you're just another annoying solicitor, people are not gonna give you the time of day. But if you sound alert, I've said before, one of my favorite books about this is Jordan Belfort's, The Wolf of Wall Street. He was a really good salesperson, even though at a time he was a dirtbag. He would talk about his tonality being sharp as a tack, enthusiastic as hell, and an expert in your field, right? If you can try to convey those three things when you're talking to somebody, even in the first 5, 6, 7 seconds on the phone or at a face-to-face interaction, people can tell, right? People are, I like to say, they're sophisticated meat machines where they judge if this person has any information or any value for me talking to that person. So work on those things. If your contact rate is really high, but you're not getting into very many productive conversations, then you should probably look at that. Ask for some help. Ask for help from your team lead, your supervisors, another agent. There's a couple other things. If you're getting into a lot of conversations that are, going, let's say, more than 2 minutes long, but they're not end up, yielding any sort of results, enrollments, there's probably some other factor that you're missing out on. I would say it's either a lack of knowledge or you're letting the conversation go off the rails in some way, shape, or form. You're, again, back to what Jordan Belfort used to say, this was called spiraling off to Pluto. If you find yourself talking about, something unrelated to what you're calling about or what you're talking to that person about, you probably need to get back on track and work on maintaining a little bit more focus and control over that presentation, that pitch, okay? How can you be more productive? How can you close more? Where can I get better? I would constantly, no matter where you're at in your career, be asking yourself, how can I get better? How can I increase my value as an agent? What do I not know that people continually are asking me or that I'm getting stuck on? Is it a lack of knowledge? Is it a lack of sales knowledge? Is it a lack of product knowledge? And one of the things, guys, about this industry is it is more complicated than a lot of other sales, a lot of other product lines. There's a lot more knowledge that you need to know. And the thing that I like about that is it gives us the opportunity to be experts. And when people can tell that you have any sort of base level knowledge more than the average person or more than they do, they're much more willing to talk to you. So I'm getting to the point here, which is ultimately, how can you all be more productive? How can you make more money, right? So the other kind of training portion of this that I've always asked, and this is one of the things that when we were doing, I was actually reviewed this from that mastermind that we used to do, Sean, is how much is your time worth, right? And if I asked you, all of you, how much is your time worth? I don't mean what do you get paid hourly or what's your commission schedule. You personally, what is a productive day and productive hour of your professional time worth? And I would bet that a lot of you probably don't know that off the top of your head. And it's very, very important for you to know that. And I would say my life, my career, and ultimately my habits changed massively when I started doing this exercise with intent. And I asked myself, back when I was doing door to door, what is my time worth? And the way that you can calculate that professionally is, well, let's take last year. We just ended last year. What did you make all in on an annual basis? Not, what you told the government you made and you filed on your taxes. How much income, how much revenue did you take in, whether that be through this job or you side hustle, door dashing, whatever you did on the side, all in, all together. Then divide that by 260 business days in a year. Okay, that amount will give you what your business day, what a Monday through Friday traditionally is worth for you. And then divide that by 8 hours if you're working 8 hours a day. And that's kind of an average amount of what your time is worth. Okay. Now, back when I initially calculated this exercise, I came up with this figure and I was like, okay, my time is worth X amount of dollars. And then I became very, very cognizant of what I was spending my time, especially when I was in business mode or when I was in work mode, right? When I'm in income generating mode, what is my time worth? And by doing that and holding myself to a standard and accountable, I was much less willing to waste time. Because, let me give you an example. Recently, we kind of rolled out a new policy with like phones on the floor and things like that. And part of the reason was productivity. And if I asked you and I said, hey, Sean, I want you to play Clash of Clans here. Would you pay $80 to play Clash of Clans here for an hour? You'd probably be like, hell no. That's a ridiculous proposition. I would never do that. But we're doing that collectively through many different things all throughout our day because we've decided to trade our time for whatever it is. Maybe that's, milling around unproductive, or maybe you're trying to make some extra money after hours and then you've decided that it's more productive, to doom scroll on social media that whole time or to watch Netflix. And so when you actually know what your time is worth, when you're measuring it, you can, if you're not in the position that you want to be, you can work on improving that. And I know that no matter where you're at in your life, when you focus on being productive, you can then start eliminating things and being more efficient with your time and trading your time for money. And one of the things that I used to do a lot, that I've talked a lot about, is when I was doing sales, and this includes right up until literally 2 years ago, and some of you know when I was still actively selling, I worked Saturdays almost every Saturday for 10 years in some way, shape, or form. And I would generally work from about 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. And a lot of times, some of my Saturday chores and things like that, I was more than willing to pay a neighbor kid 20, 40, 50 bucks to take care of my yard or do whatever I would need to do on a Saturday, because I knew my time. I knew what my time was worth. If I could come in every day and I could go, whether I was knocking doors or whether I could come in and make more money, my time was more valuable doing that than it was doing my Saturday chores that I coincidentally ended up hating anyway. So those are some hacks. When you know your time and know what your time's worth, you can know how to improve that, right? You can start being more efficient, more productive, and your business days, your business hours, your revenue generating time is going to increase exponentially, okay? And that's how you get to that next level. If you're, a W-2 employee and you want to go independent one day and you want to be able to create a little bit of savings to where you can go have a nest egg to make that transition, or you're on our LOA team and you want to go independent, but you need to have that, a couple months at least worth of savings to make that transition. These are the ways that you hack that, by increasing your productive business hours, saving some of that money, and giving yourself enough opportunity to make those things happen. So this activity, a lot of people don't like it, or they won't do it because they don't really like kind of what it unveils for them. They don't like knowing that, oh, my time's not as valuable as I thought it was. I don't really want to come to terms with how much time I'm actually wasting and what that's costing me. But I promise, if you're not in the situation that you want, almost everybody that I know wants to be more effective, make more money, do better in life, right? So this is an incredible exercise to help you kind of get a grasp of where you're at. I think I kind of already talked about all this stuff. What do you make? Break it down. What do you make in an hour? For a while, I actually wrote this dollar amount down for my daily, and broke it down every hour. So when somebody would come to me and say, hey, do you want to go golfing for half the day? And I'd go, 4 hours. Do I want to spend what the golf fee is right now, plus my, half of my income generating day? And then in my mind there, that's really what it would cost. The same thing applies for, like a vacation. Well, how much does this vacation cost? Well, it costs me, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, whatever the vacation costs me. Well, then it's also going to cost my time that I would earn in that, So there's all sorts of factors. And I'm not saying, become a workaholic. This is how you hack your life to be able to be better at all of these things. So when you go through this activity, is your time worth more or less than you thought it was? I think that'll be really revealing for some of you. Is it in line with what you expect for yourself? And I think that's, that's very, very interesting because, when I first got married, my wife really wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, and I'd always been in sales, and I was like, I can make as much as a doctor or a lawyer if I just am effective with my sales time, and that's taking out the whole fact that I don't have to go to medical school for 6 to 8 years, and I don't have to have all this debt. If I am efficient and I can, do this exercise with my sales and be effective with my time, I'll be able to make the income that we need, and that's turned out to be true in my life. How can you increase this? How many hours and days of your time are productive, and how many are you wasting during a calendar year? If you're not where you're at financially in your life, I promise you this is a huge factor in why that is. With agents, and I don't know, sometimes I copy and paste from other things, and apparently this sentence doesn't make sense. Observing some of your peers. Okay, oh yeah. So with me casually observing, you all and a whole ecosystem of 3,000 or so agents, I can promise you that a lot of you are wasting a lot of this time. A lot of you are not maximizing your potential here, and there's a lot more that you could be getting out of yourself, even in a traditional, normal 40-hour work week, right? I'm not saying everybody's got to be grinding their heads off, 8 to 10 hours a day, all day, every day. And if you don't want to do that specifically, be more efficient with the time that you are already allocating towards that. So there's a couple of other things that I came up with how you all can maximize your time. For example, times that minimize vacation time. I just went on a vacation. I flew back on the red eye. It was great. I was gone 8 days over a week. I tried to time it during the time of the year when it's as worthless as possible for the business. It sucks too because it's also the most expensive time of the year to go on vacation, that time in between Christmas and New Year's. But it's because I'm trying to maximize my productive work time. I'm always want to put a vacation in at that time. When we flew back, I flew back on a red eye and was right at the office at 7:30 a.m. as soon as I dropped my family off. So I'm trying to minimize. I do that not to necessarily brag, but I'm doing it to minimize my disruption, my time on vacation. My wife, on the other hand, she needs 3 days before the vacation, to prep, mentally prep, and then she needs 3 days after the vacation to, mentally unprepare and get back to the swing of things. So there's, things like that. Vacation. How are you maximizing your time? Do you need to take 3 or 4 days off before you take your time off? And then does it take you a long time to get back into the swing of things? Slow times, unproductive times, and disruptions. Super easy. All of us struggle with this. Our phones, we live in this society where there's like a million different notifications on everything on our computers, on our phones, and everything's stealing our time and attention away. And we live in a very, modern ADHD society where a lot of us have a hard time focusing. So for me, when I find myself in this, I'll take my phone too, and I'll just put it out of reach of where I can't get it, I can't check my notifications. I'm locked into what I'm doing because, we get in the habits. Does anybody know how many times they say modern people check their phones now? Like pick it up, check it. Does anyone know? Studies show over 200 times a day. So, and for a lot of people, it's as high as like 370 times in a day. So that's literally like, every couple of minutes we're just, our brains get trained to do that. Learn to effectively get over and get through obstacles, right? This is something as a salesperson that we all struggle with. And some of us know some of the agents or salespeople who are, they're the negative ones, they're the complainers. And I would say that, in my earlier days, I was kind of a complainer too when in a sales environment. And I did it because it was like a catharsis for me. It was like getting the venom out. I could like, bitch and complain about something real quick and then quickly get over it and then move on and be productive. Well, not everybody's like that. And I was not always probably beneficial to other people because some people would hold on to things. It would ruin their whole day, ruin their whole week, their whole month. And it would take them a long time to kind of get over things. So, just like in sports, they say, get a next play mentality, let it go, move on quickly. We've been talking about learn how to maximize your productive time. What I mean by this specifically is, has anybody seen the movie The Pursuit of Happiness? So there's a scene in there, Will Smith, where he doesn't have as much time to put in because he has his kid, if I'm remembering it right. But when he's dialing people, he remembers or he figures out a way that if he doesn't actually put the phone down and he just keeps it in his hand and keeps dialing, that he can dial X amount of percentage of more people, right? Well, fortunately, we have a modern day version like Convoso that helps us be productive if you're dialing or if you're an agent and you're out there, doing your leads or whatnot. But we have also modern day versions of that where, maybe you're not logged in, maybe you're not, it's not dialing. Those things there's hacks and things that you can do to stay productive, okay? Cut out a lot of we just talked about this, slow time momentum killers. How much money is it costing me? Is it costing you to do the things that you're doing in a day that bring down your average, right? So I just talked about, I use like Clash of Clans, for example. If you sat and were like, oh, I looked at my phone and my little app monitor or whatever tells me I'm playing Clash of Clans for 3 hours a day and I'm looking at Instagram and TikTok for freaking 6 hours a day, and that costs me, X amount of dollars of my day to sit there and look at social media and things like that. You're probably going to be much more cognizant and much more aware of these things that are killing your income generating activities. How much of that time is actually spent doing things that make you no money, right? Like this is another thing, this is separate. I've talked about the example before. Darren Hardy gave an example of when he was selling for real estate, he loved to go shopping at Nordstrom, right? And during the day, he would spend an hour or two browsing clothes. And he talks about how ultimately that made him realize that there were things he could be better spent doing with his time. And we as agents are famous for this, right? They'll do anything they can. They'll come up with any excuse to feel productive without actually doing the sales work, right? Oh, and especially you new agents, if some of you guys are newly coming on or you're getting in the industry, they'll love to go to trainings. They'll love to go to seminars and they'll love to do all these different things, but they don't want to actually do the sales work, right? So a lot of times we'll come up with activities that make us feel like we're being productive, but they're not actually necessary, nor are they income generating activities, right? So when you go through this exercise, this is ultimately what I want you to figure out, is how much of your ROT, your return on time, can be changed. Like, where can you maximize these things? Because if you're not following what I'm saying, I'm not asking all of you to put in exponential more amounts of time. I'm asking you to become really crystal clear on the time that you're already allocating out of your lives to be income generating for you and maximize that, okay? And once you do that, you may also decide that you want to put in some extra additional time too. And that's really where you can make magic happen. So, anyone have any questions, comments? So, final thing, the numbers work in reverse, right? And so if you're a new agent, this is an exercise that we do in that elite agent training. How many policies do you need to sell each month to cover your bills? You know, if you're on our internal team, nobody's working here just for the base pay. If you're on the, no matter what you're doing, I would go through this and say, you all know whatever your comp model is, whatever your commission schedule is, and here we have a few different versions for everybody. But how many of those policies do you need to sell each month to pay your bills? If you don't know that, I promise you're going to be, setting yourself up for failure. If you're an independent agent, you got to factor in prorated commissions. You got to factor in chargebacks, things like that. Is there a shortfall? How are you going to make this up, right? If you're saying, I can only do 15 enrollments a month, and that's going to yield X amount of dollars in commissions with what I'm making, this is what I'm going to take in, but my bills are actually this, and there's a shortfall. What are you going to do to make that gap, right? Put in extra time, extra effort. If you're an independent agent, maybe that means you can't get by working 40 hours a week. Maybe you've got to work 80 for a short period of time. Maybe during annual enrollment, you've got to over-index, which a lot of you have done. Or maybe you got to take advantage of some overtime opportunities. But how many policies do you need to sell, not only to cover your bases, but how many policies do you need to sell to actually hit your goals, right? We all have where our needs are and like what we need to make, but like, what do you actually need to make to hit that next level to achieve your goals? And I would work towards improving your time to hit that, okay? Does that make sense for everybody? Any questions, comments? Cool. So we'll consider that. I went a little bit long on that portion of it, so we'll consider that our kind of trainings and updates piece. Moving on, just as a reminder, guys, we have an agent referral bonus for everybody, all channels. If you refer an agent to us and that agent produces, I believe it's 12 policies. I'm going to say it's 12 policies because this is being recorded. It might be 10. We'll pay you a $500 bonus. So as soon as they become active, meaning, obviously we can't be paying these bonuses out if you refer a bunch of people over and they never do anything. That doesn't make any sense. But as soon as they've produced whether 10 ACA policies or any 10 policies, we'll pay you a $500 bonus. We've built a mechanism inside all of your Rocket CRM. It's a form that you'll be able to attach to, that you'll be able to send as like an affiliate link to whoever it is that's interested. I don't really quite understand. It's not fully rolled out yet, but we built it last week. So it'll be easy for all of you. If you have friends, family members, anybody else that wants to get into the business, let us know. $500 referral bonus. Here's our elite agent trainings, guys. For those of you who are, on the internal team, we'll start putting some of these aspects into your daily and weekly training as well. But this is for independent agents and all of you agents out there across the country. These are free to come to. The first one is actually next week on the 21st and 22nd here in Salt Lake. And then the next one's February 26th and 27th, also here in this auditorium. We had an 80% success rate on this. And what I mean by that is any agent that came to that Agent Elite training, 80% of those became what I would consider highly active, meaning they produced more than 30 enrollments in a year, which sounds really low. But as independent agents, it's about a 10% success rate over 2 years. People call this industry 8% nation or 10% nation or whatever it is, because statistically 90% of people that get an insurance license are out of the business within 2 years. So we have an incredible statistic of high success rate for those agents who do want to come to this. Again, it's free, and you don't have to even be licensed with us. So if you all know somebody that is kind of interested in working with Agent Boost or maybe interested in the industry, they can come to this training for free, and they don't even have to be one of our current agents. This is kind of the schedule there, kind of some of the things that we go over. Chacon, have you been to this yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, okay. So Hawaii update. We updated the points for this and made it easier. And it wasn't necessarily, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't necessarily because I thought originally it was too hard, but we gave a little bit on it too. For those of you, just some context, guys, the trip is designed to, WellCare and Humana are the two that really do a lot for us as the company. Same thing with we're trying to ingratiate behavior and instill behaviors for our selling Allstate and selling Golden Rule, some of those ancillary programs as well. But we increased the points back retroactively for everybody. So WellCare enrollments are worth 5 points. Humana are worth 2.5. And then Golden Rule and Allstate are each worth a point here too. So I'll send out some updated information. And one of the things too, I think, again, I'll say these trips are designed, they do take extra effort, right? You're probably not going to hit it just, working your routine. Oh, I show up, I work my, punch the clock, whatever, and I just kind of see what happens. And if I make it, great. They're designed for the people who are working harder, putting in extra effort, that want to, earn something like this. Sean, who else has made one of these trips before in the past? Just Sean? Sean, give me a testimonial on these trips.
It's incredible. We've been to every island in Hawaii. You're spending time with your coworkers, bonding, these crazy adventures that you never do otherwise. It's all kind of planned out. You can go off on your own or stick with the group. It's good meals, good food.
You've made how many of these? 3? Have we done 3?
4.
This will be the 4th, right? So Sean's made all 3 prior trips. And when he says you get to hang out with your coworkers and stuff like that, some of you might, or other agents might think that doesn't sound that great. But I promise you, it's really fun. They're not like a traditional corporate trip. Sean was at Go Health prior, and he had some good trips there too. But some of these vacations are really corporate-y. I think they sound pretty lame. These trips are not like that. They're very fun, spare no expense. And they're definitely something that I think you all should strive for. Work extra hard. The other thing I want to tell you is last year we had Ernest make the trip in 3 months. So he qualified. So when people are oh, I can't be done, blah, 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 I'm too far behind. I have seen multiple agents make the qualifying numbers in a very, very short period of time. So here's kind of a snapshot of where we're at. We'll send this out. This does not include any January sales yet. So anything that you've done in January so far is not included in here. And one more thing I'll say is we put out an announcement that said WellCare enrollments between December 8th and the end of the year were worth an extra point, and then we moved it up to that anyway. We'll still give you an extra point. So all of you that put in extra time and effort in that time between when annual enrollment ended and the end of the year, you'll have some extra points there as well, okay? So please work hard, guys. I'll give you, as soon as I have some numbers that are coming in from January, I'll add those in, but I'm gonna be reaching out to some of you individually and just kind of giving you an update on where you're at and hopefully kind of prodding you along to put a little bit more effort into to make that trip. These LOA 4 team, strategic sales agents, just a reminder to continue to focus on these guys. Zing, we're doing okay. They're just really limited, Devoted, we're still producing a good amount for these guys. And we're doing great with Humana and even WellCare. Shout outs to top agents for last week. Joannick, Mark. These are crazy, crazy numbers for the second week in January of open enrollment. So again, you guys can see what people are doing. And one of the really cool things I like about our ecosystem right now, especially on our virtual teams, because I don't have the field numbers until the month after, but anybody that's virtual, we're all working the same system, the same shared pool of leads. So it's like, you know, what's this guy doing? Well, he doesn't have access to anything else that everybody else doesn't do. So I'm going to try to do a better job of maybe sharing out some best practices and some tips and tricks from you all agents that are doing a good job, and kind of raising the bar, increasing the average level of acumen from some of our great agents, our top performers. And then overall month to date, some of our agents, here's where they're at so far. Shout out again to Joannick, Bree, Carolyn. Look, we got this husband and wife duo crushing it. So they're doing great. Dave Rosenthal, Alexander James, Randy, Zach, Carlos. And I love seeing new names up here. Really appreciate you guys. That's it. That's all I've got. So make it a great week, guys. It's open enrollment. Just so you all know, as a company, we're trending to be double where we were last year, which is great for everybody. But open enrollment is still an amazing time to produce a high level of enrollments. So whether you're independent or you're on our internal team or you're a field agent, keep hitting it hard, guys, because we're going to process more enrollments during OEP than we did during AEP. And there's a little bit, once we hit April, there's a little bit of uncertainty with a couple special election periods and things like that. I'm sure we'll be, everything will stay great. We always find a way to stay highly productive and shift our focus there. But I really want to emphasize the importance of the next 3 months for you all to kind of, keep the pedal to the metal. Anything else? Anyone have any questions, any comments? No? All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.